Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to today's Tabnine live session. My name is Shantanu Kedar and I lead product marketing here at Tabnine. And with me is Chris. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. My name is Chris Good. I'm a product marketing manager here at Tab9. Excited to be back again today. This is 2 days in a row. You all get to see my face. We were here yesterday for office hours and back again today for Tab9 Live. So excited to chat with you all today and show off some new features we've been working hard on.
No, exactly. And as Chris mentioned, we have a packed agenda for today. We are talking about, or we'll be discussing a bunch of new capabilities that we released. So this includes product features that enable you to get highly personalized code from Tabnine, as well as another product feature that enables you to minimize the risk of IP liability when using third-party models with Tabnine. So why don't we get started? Next slide, please, Chris. All right. So before we dig into today's topic, wanted to spend a few minutes and provide an overview of Tabnine, especially for folks who might not be familiar with the company. So Tabnine is an AI software development platform that is tailored to you and your team. We offer AI agents that are highly contextualized, enabling you to get recommendations that are highly personalized and highly tailored to your teams. Tabnine is the originator of the AI coding assistant category. We first introduced our AI code assistants for Java back in the ID back in 2018. Uh, Today, you can use multiple models with Tabnine. You can use popular third-party models such as Claude 3.5 Sonnet, GPT-4o from OpenAI, Command R Plus, you name it. Like you have all these popular models available to you, and these models can be used to power the backend for our AI chat. In addition to these popular models from third-party providers, we also offer proprietary models from Tabnine. So those models are typically used for cases where companies have very strict use case or very strict policies around security around for AI generation. So today, Tab9, as you all know, is a Series B startup. We are a rapidly growing Series B startup, and we are backed by top-tier investors. So this includes Atlassian Ventures, Khosla, Qualcomm, Telstra, and others. We support over 600 programming languages and frameworks. So all the popular programming languages and frameworks are supported. And in addition to this, we are fully integrated in all the major IDs. So integrated with VS Code, JetBrains family of IDs, Visual Studio, as well as Eclipse. Tabnine is a clear leader in this space. We are used by over a million developers across thousands of companies. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight on this slide is the flexibility that you get when it comes to deploying Tabnine. So you can deploy Tabnine or you can use Tabnine as a secure SaaS offering, or you can use Tab9 in a fully private deployment. So you can deploy Tab9 on-prem in a VPC or in a fully air-gapped environment. So depending on what your company's data policy is, we have a solution for that need. Perfect. Tab9 is highly recognized by analyst firms all over the world. So one good example is Gartner. So Gartner recently published their recently published their critical capabilities report for AI code assistants. And in this report, they evaluated 12 vendors across 5 different use cases. And we are really proud to share that Tab9 was ranked first for the code generation use case, the code debugging use case, code explanation use cases. And then we are ranked second for the code modernization and artifact building and testing use cases. In addition to Gartner, Tabnine has also been recognized by Everest Group. So Everest Group is a leading research firm, and they recently evaluated code assistants as part of their innovation watch assessments for Gen AI applications for software development. So in this research, I believe there are like 14 vendors, and we are like happy to share that Tab9 was recognized as a luminary. So this is the highest category that they have in their analysis. And then lastly, Tab9 is also recognized by Omdia Group in their market radar for AI assistant software development. Next slide. All right, so that was like a brief overview of Tab9, who we are as a company, and our core capabilities. So here's what we'll be covering in today's session. So as I mentioned, we have quite a few new capabilities that we want to like showcase in this session. We have the code review agent. We have several new personalization features. So this includes the ability to create as well as share custom commands with your team, custom chat behaviors, as well as ability to set the response length for AI chat. And then lastly, we'll look at the provenance and attribution feature. So this feature enables you to minimize the risk of IP liability when using third-party models with Tabnine. And just like in every other session that we have, we'll do like a live demo and go through all these capabilities. Next slide. Okay, so there's one thing that we can all agree on, and it is that AI has truly revolutionized software development. Just a few years ago, we had code completion in the IDE, and that felt like magic. And then we had AI chat or chat in the IDE, and that enabled you to accomplish various software development tasks using natural language. Now we are entering the era of AI agents and agentic workflows where AI autonomously performs tasks across the entire SDLC with human in the loop. Today, it's common to use AI to perform tasks such as creating test cases, writing code that aligns with your coding standards, implementing Jira tickets, validating Jira tickets, and the list goes on. The adoption of AI in software development is not slowing down, and that's rightfully so. Independent studies from Carnegie Mellon, BCG, and other vendors have shown that AI code assistants deliver 30 to 50% productivity gains and lead to higher developer satisfaction. Gartner predicts over 75% adoption of AI code assistants within the next 2 years. Next slide, please. So, at the heart of every AI code assistant is an LLM. Some of the commonly used LLMs include Claude 3.5 Sonnet from Anthropic. You have GPT-4o from OpenAI, Command R Plus from Cohere. Then you have the Llama models from Meta, Codestral. Quen is another powerful model from Alibaba Cloud, and then obviously like DeepSeek. I mean, they've been in the news, like, or heavily dominated the news cycle for the past few weeks. And one thing that I feel is very clear is that, or one thing that we have learned in the past few weeks with the arrival of DeepSeek is that the battle to decide the best model is far from over. We'll see newer models and newer vendors entering the market in 2025 as well as beyond 2025. All right, next slide, please. So all these LLMs are extremely powerful. I mean, most of them have already utilized all the publicly available data on the internet for training purposes and are now looking at using synthetic data to improve model performance. Even though the LLMs have been trained on a vast corpus of data and contain billions of parameters, they are not aware of the coding standards and best practices. They are not aware of the privacy and security policies of a specific organization. And that's by design. I mean, you don't want your proprietary data to be used by Anthropic or OpenAI to train their models. So since these LLMs lack context, their answers are textbook accurate, but they are very generic and does not align with what an engineering team finds acceptable. Standalone LLMs are like skilled software engineers off the street, well-intentioned but totally unaware of how things work in an organization. This is especially true at enterprises, where each team has its own unique and intricate ways of creating, securing, and maintaining code that powers its applications. I mean, if you ask 10 different engineering managers how to utilize telemetry services in their team, you'll get 10 different answers. And the challenge is that each one of these answers is technically true. It's just that the correct answer is the one that is accepted by that specific team. With the proliferation of AI code assistants amongst enterprises, there has been a significant increase in the volume of code that is being generated by AI. However, most of this code is not tailored to the organization, and as a result of this, it does not get past the pull request. In addition to code quality, the other big challenge is IP liability. I mean, since these LLMs are trained on all the data available on the internet, they do have a potential to produce suggestions that match non-permissive code. If you accept these suggestions accidentally, that it introduces copyleft license code in your code base and leads to IP infringement. Engineering leaders often ask themselves, like, are we using AI to accelerate our software development by producing high quality and more secure code, or are we just creating more technical debt with AI? For AI to add any meaningful value in improving the software quality for teams, it must have the same level of understanding as a fully onboarded senior member of that team. Next slide, please, Chris. So the way we solve this problem is by personalization. So we offer 4 layers of personalization here at Tabnine, and using personalization, you get responses from Tabnine that are highly tailored to you and highly accurate. So the 4 layers of personalization, we call them the 4 C's. So that's like context, connection, coaching, and customization. So context refers to leveraging the locally available code and data in your IDE as context when it comes to like using Tabnine. So this includes any open files you have, any open projects, any comments that you have added, any variables that you have created, any libraries that you have connected to, as well as 12 other sources of information. What we noticed was when customers like enabled this local context awareness, the quality of responses from Tabnine, there was a drastic increase in that. So the acceptance rate for responses from Tabnine, it was 40% higher with local code awareness as compared to responses that didn't have this local code awareness. And this is really critical. It goes on to show that adding the right context to an LLM using techniques such as RAG, you get responses that are valuable and are more acceptable to what your coding standards are. The second layer of personalization, or the second C as we call it, is connection. So in addition to leveraging the locally available code and data in your IDE, you can also leverage, or you can also have Tabnine leverage your global context. So this includes connecting Tabnine to your global code repositories, be it GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. You can connect Tabnine, or Tabnine administrators have the ability to connect Tabnine to these repos and use the context in these repos as, or use the information in these repos as additional context to guide the behavior of Tabnine. The third layer of personalization is coaching. This is interesting. So, I mean, if you look at the first two C's, context and connections, these are providing like implicit guidance to Tabnine around like how to behave. Whereas coaching is your ability to provide direct or explicit guidance to Tabnine and make Tabnine adhere to your specific coding standards and best practices. We have like a few slides coming up later in the presentation regarding Code Review Agent, which is our first incarnation of coaching. So we'll kind of talk more about that in those slides. And then lastly, we have customization. So this is model fine tuning. So this is where you can fine tune our model using your own code and your own data, and create a custom model and use it for interactions with Tabnine. We have seen this being a very valuable use case for companies where you are working on code, or you're working on like languages or frameworks that are underrepresented in the training data set for various models. So one great example is semiconductor industries. So these companies typically work with system Verilog, and there isn't a whole lot of system Verilog code out there in the open source world that models can train on. So this is like one of the really nice use cases where model customization comes in really handy. So those are like the four layers of personalization that we have. And let me kind of go through some of the new capabilities that we have launched that enable you to get personalized recommendations from Tabnine. All right, great. Next slide, please, Chris. Okay, so the first one is Tabnine's Code Review Agent. This is an AI software validation agent that enables organizations to produce higher quality, more secure code by leveraging and enforcing any given team's unique best practices and standards for software development. The agent checks the code in the pull request and ID against rules that align with your unique standards. And if the code doesn't conform to your rules, then the agent flags the deviation and, more importantly, provides suggestions on how to fix the issues. Next slide, please. So to use the code review agent, you first need to feed your coding standards and best practices into Tabnine. When it comes to ingesting the institutional knowledge from customers, we offer complete flexibility. There are no restrictions on the format for the best practices and coding standards that we can work with. So for example, you can provide us your best practices document in plain English, and Tabnine will convert this into rules for code validation. Similarly, customers can also provide us access to their code repos that serve as the gold standard for creating high quality code in their organization. Tabnine will extract PR comments and other code patterns and convert this into rules for validating code. In addition to creating custom rules for your code standards, Tabnine also gives you predefined rules. So these are predefined rules for industry standards as well as language and framework specific best practices. The other important as well as really nice thing is that all the rules are in plain English. So this makes it easy to review the rules. It makes it easy to understand these rules, add new rules, and then maintain them over time. Tabnine administrators have complete control. As an administrator, you can enable specific rules. You can disable the rules that are not applicable to your company, as well as you can set the severity of these rules. After an engineer creates a pull request, Tabnine's code review agent validates it against a set of relevant rules. If Tabnine detects deviations from a specific rule, then it flags it to the code reviewer, as well as Tabnine provides information on why the code validated the specific rule, as well as gives you suggestions on how to fix the code. In the near future, we will be releasing a capability where the code review agent will shift left. So in addition to reviewing code in the pull request, you would be able to invoke the code review agent in the IDE as well. So that's another capability that's coming out soon.
It doesn't look like the GIF is playing, but do not worry. We're going to show all of this in the demo later
Exactly.
on after the slides here. So no worries.
The second capability that we have is custom chat behavior. So this is like a brand new capability that was released very recently, and this feature enables developers to customize the behavior of AI chat according to their preferences. So think of it as having a configurable AI partner that automatically adjusts its expertise and communication style to match your needs. There are many use cases for this particular feature, and here are some common ones that we have seen so far. So senior developers working on system architecture can configure Tabnine to focus on scalability patterns, performance implications, and architectural trade-offs. When they ask about implementing a new microservice, they'll automatically receive responses that address service boundaries, API design, and deployment considerations. If you're a junior developer, Tabnine can act as a patient mentor using this capability. So you can configure Tabnine to provide detailed explanations that include not just the what, but also the why behind each suggestions. So when reviewing a piece of code, Tabnine will highlight potential performance concerns, as well as explain the underlying computer science concepts that cause them. Another really neat feature or another really neat use case as part of this feature is the ability to set your default language. And this is very valuable when you have international teams. So for example, you can specify that, hey, like instead of like giving me responses back in English, going forward, give the responses in, let's say, Spanish or German or any other major language. So any recommendations from Tab9 beyond that point would be in that language, be it for explaining code, writing code, and so on. So you can easily specify the language that you want as the default for Tab9. And then security focused teams can set Tab9 to prioritize security best practices in every interaction. When reviewing code or suggesting implementations, Tab9 will automatically highlight potential vulnerabilities, suggest secure alternatives, and provide context about various attack vectors, as well as act as an always on security advisor. So that's the second feature that we introduced. Next slide, please. The other new capability that we have is the ability to set the response length in AI chat. So we understand that different scenarios call for different levels of detail. So this new feature, which is our customization for feature length, enables you to fine-tune Tab9 around how it communicates based on your specific needs and preferences. So we have two different modes. We have the concise mode and the comprehensive mode. The concise mode is perfect for experienced developers who need a quick, to the point solution. So if you have the concise mode on, you'll receive like focused responses that cut straight to the solution. And this is usually helpful when you just need like a quick confirmation or a brief code snippet. The second mode, which is comprehensive, that is where you can get detailed technical answers from Tab9. It provides in-depth explanations, alternative approaches, as well as relevant examples. This is particularly valuable when you are working on problems where there is complex architectural decisions involved, or if you are like a developer that's like new to a project or new to a team, so you need like additional assistance, or for documenting important technical decisions. Next slide, please. The third capability is around custom commands. So Tab9 offers custom commands that enable you to take away the heavy lifting of prompt engineering for tasks or questions that you often find yourself asking in AI chat. So some common use cases for custom commands include you can have security audit workflows that automatically check for common vulnerabilities, analyze dependency risk, and suggest security improvements. You can have custom commands for code refactoring patterns that align with your team's architectural standards and performance requirements. as well as document generators that create consistent, comprehensive documentation following your team's templates. So we always had this capability of creating custom commands. What's new is that you can now share these custom commands across your team for increased collaboration and consistency. So this ensures that every team member has access to the same capabilities, reducing inconsistencies and making it easier to maintain quality standards across your entire development organization. As your team's practices evolve, you can update these custom commands in one place, and the changes are automatically available to everyone on the team. Next slide, please. All right. So those were the capabilities that we introduced that enable you to produce code that is of higher quality. The next feature that we're going to talk about, which is provenance and attribution, this is the one where you can minimize the risk of IP liability when using third-party models with Tabnine. So as I mentioned before, like in addition to getting code that aligns with your coding standards and best practices, it's equally important that AI generated code aligns with the security policy of organization. So security, like when I say security policy, like in this case, it refers to the the protection from IP liability. I mean, it's well known that popular models like Anthropic's got 3.5 on it, GPT-4o from OpenAI are trained on a large corpus of data. And this includes publicly available information, such as all the information on the websites, text and internet forums, as well as information in code repositories. Some of these repos contain permissively licensed code. So, for example, repos that contain code with licenses such as BSD or MIT. While there are other repositories that can contain code that has restrictions on how it can be used. So, for example, code with copyleft licensing like GPL. As you all know, like a model's training data is crucial in shaping its output, as LLMs like are inherently known to replicate patterns that are found in their training data set. So this means that when using third-party models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet or GPT-4o, there is a potential that they can generate code that exists in their training data set. And this includes code with copyleft licensing. I mean, if you accidentally accept this code, this introduces non-permissive code in your code base, resulting in IP infringement. Since the copyright law for AI generated content is not settled yet, engineering teams, especially at enterprises, want to strike a balance. They want to leverage the performance gains that come with powerful models, while at the same time minimize the risk of copyleft licensing code getting in their code base. Next slide, please. Okay. Before, like, another thing that I wanted to just like highlight is that it's not as if every time you use a model like Claude 3.5 Sonnet or GPT-4o, you get code that matches some non-permissive code out there. It does not happen on every single interaction, but it does happen. Like, as in, the likelihood of this happening is low, but at the same time, it's not zero. So, for example, there was research that was done recently where they evaluated top performing LLMs, and they found that they were able to these top performing LLMs produced code that was similar to open source implementation, anywhere between 0.88% to 2%. So again, like the percentage of this happening or the likelihood of this happening is really low. But at the same time, since this is not zero, it can be a concern to some companies. The other thing that this research found was most of the LLMs, they fail to provide accurate license information, especially for code under copyleft licensings. Next slide, please. So to support these goals, we introduced the provenance and attribution capability. So this is a new feature that drastically reduces the risk of IP infringement when using models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, GPT-4o, Command R plus from Cohere, and so on. Tabnine checks the code generated within our AI chat against publicly visible code on GitHub, flags any matches it's fine, and references the source repository as well as its license type. This critical information makes it easier for you to review the code suggestions and decide if they meet the specific requirements and policies of your organization. The provenance and attribution capability supports the full breadth of software development activities within Tabnine. So this includes using Tabnine for generating code, fixing code, writing test cases, implementing and validating Jira issues, and so on. After you invoke an AI agent or submit your prompt in AI chat, Tabnine checks the generated code against all the publicly visible code on GitHub. If Tabnine finds a match, it notifies you within the chat interface itself and lists the source repo. So it will tell you that, hey, like this was this the match that I found. Here's the name of that repo as well as the license type for that repo, which is like it will give you like specify whether it's like a GPL license, a BSD license, or an MIT license. The other critical thing to note is that since Tab9 reads code like a human, it will flag not only the output that exactly matches open source code, but it will also flag output if there is a functional or implementation match. So this way, Tab9 will flag cases where the overall function is the same, but the variable names are changed. So again, like a really neat feature to have. Tabnine administrators have full visibility, so Tabnine keeps a log so that admins can review and keep track of code matches that have been there that match open source code on the internet. And there are like two new features that we are releasing in the near future related to provenance and attribution. So first one is that we are planning to add a capability that allows you to identify specific repos for Tabnine to check the generated code against. So for example, you can specify repos maintained by comparators and thus ensure that code from your comparators doesn't get introduced in your code base. The other really nice capability that we're introducing very soon is a censorship capability, where timeline administrators can remove any matching code before it's even displayed to the developer. So, for example, an admin can have a setting which says that, hey, like as in any code with GPL licenses, don't even display that to the developer to the developer. So this way, like the onus on deciding what to do when you get a match is no longer on the developer, and it's all taken care by the admin. Next slide, please. So with this capability, we now offer two levels of protection from IP liability. So we have the inference time protection. So this is with provenance and attribution. So Tab9 now checks the output of RAI chat against all the publicly visible code on GitHub. If it finds any matches, it flags it. It lets you know about the source repo as well as the license type. And usually for a vast majority of our customers, this is fairly sufficient, like especially the legal and compliance team. This level of protection is sufficient for most of our enterprise customers. And this enables you to use powerful models to leverage the performance gains that come with powerful models like GPT-4o, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and at the same time have this added layer of protection from IP liability. We also offer the training time protection. So this mainly refers to our Tabnine protected model. So Tabnine offers a proprietary model called Tabnine Protected. This model is purpose built for software development, and we have trained it only on code that is permissibly licensed. So this means that any recommendation that you get back from this model, you can accept it without the risk of IP liability. However, the performance of this model is lower as compared to Claude 3.5 Sonnet or GPT-4o. And the reason behind that is that since this model is trained on like permissive code that you can find on the internet, the the training data for this model is fairly limited. I mean, there's only like so much of permissive code out there on the internet, and as a result of this model is smaller in size, and due to that, there's like a trade-off in performance. So this model is mainly for companies who have extremely strict policies around license compliance and IP liability. I mean, like the handful of customers who are using this model, I mean, are found in industries such as like government and defense. But for a vast majority of enterprise use cases, the inference time protection is sufficient. And then lastly, we also offer indemnification. So this is indemnification or like legal indemnification to protect you from any copyright or IP property claims. Next slide. So that's all the talk track that I had prepared materials that I had in the form of slides that explain the features. So why don't we see these features in action now? Chris,
Oh, the favorite part of the show. All right. Let me throw this up here. Okie dokie. So let's just cover some basics really fast in case there are some new folks here who might not have seen Tab9 before. When you do install Tab9, You'll find it in your IDE. In this case, Visual Studio Code is what I use. You'll find it on the left, right? So clicking that opens up the Tabnine AI chat, right? And that's where you're going to be able to find things like prompting, your switchable models, and all of those customization features or personalization features we were just talking about. So diving into those, we'll start first with let's start first with custom chat behaviors. So custom chat behaviors, like Shantanu said, it gives you the ability to fundamentally change how developers interact with Tab9 chat, right? So you can have the ability to, let's say, uh, if you were a senior developer working on system architecture, right, you can say, focus on scalability patterns, performance implications, architectural trade-offs. When that dev asks about implementing a new microservice, they'll automatically receive responses that address service boundaries, API design, deployment considerations. And for those junior devs, right, you can ask it for detailed explanations that don't just include the what, but the why behind each suggestion. So just to give you an example here, let's say that we are first, let's say we're respond in German and respond as or like a system architect focusing on scalability. So then if we go over here and say, how can I implement Plaid's API for zero auth? Yeah, let's do that. What we'll do, you'll see here is Tabnine will respond in German with the sense of, focusing on that architecture scalability, which is incredibly powerful. As Shantanu alluded to earlier, it's very rare that you have all of your teams in one area or on one continent, right? Or all speak the same language, especially in the days like today, right? Where they're global teams. So having something like this is really, really powerful. And we'll dive into we'll come back to custom chat behaviors, but for right now, I think it's really important that you can fundamentally change at a high level how your developers are going to interact with Tab9, right? Languages, different patterns they can focus on, different concepts. The limit is really your imagination, which is, I think, very unusual for features today, right? There's usually always some sort of gap or stopping point, but this is very, very, very powerful. The next piece that we're going to talk about is chat response length, right? So if we go over here, let's remove this so we can all understand what it's saying again. Well, for those of us that can't speak fluent German, we can understand what it says again. So let's start with comprehensive, right? Or I guess this is let's say explain this entire fraud detection dashboard. Shouldn't have been a question, more of a statement, but it'll certainly provide an explanation here. And now this is the comprehensive one, right? So you can see it really breaking down each component, the structure, key features. It's giving a lot of great information. Now, response length being changed to, this is comprehensive, right? So as we said earlier, it transforms Tab9 into maybe more of a detailed technical advisor, right? Provides in-depth explanations, alternative approaches, relevant examples. To me, it's very beneficial for complex architectural decisions, developers who are new to a team or project, maybe need more assistance, or heck, even documenting important technical decisions. Each response and comprehensive can become a mini learning opportunity, complete with context, best practices, and pitfalls to consider. Concise mode, right, is maybe more geared towards a developer who needs a little more experience, wants a quick to the point answer, right? They'll get more straight to the solution answers, uh, focusing more on speed and efficiency, and just trying to get them the answers they need, right? So let's go back here, explain fraud detection dashboard. Sweet. And you'll see here exponentially shorter. Not wrong information, just more concise, right? And that's exactly what I asked for in the settings. So response length, concise, comprehensive, personal choice. I'm a comprehensive guy. I like to have learning experiences. Every day is a school day for me. So that's where I gravitate towards. But again, it's that freedom and flexibility to have a personalized interaction that you control of. You're in control of every interaction. So that's where this comes into play. So then the next one, let's jump down to custom commands and sharing custom commands, right? So custom commands, if you're familiar with Tabnine, you'll see that in our new AI or new UI, the agents that used to locally be here are now going to be within this dropdown that can be initialized through this slash, right? So your explain code, generate test code, document code, fix code, code explorer, those are all there. But you're now going to have the ability, of course, to not only create these custom commands, but then share them with your team members through your SCM tool like GitHub. Whenever you do upload your project next or push your project to GitHub, when anyone goes to pull it down, they'll have whatever custom commands that you've created and shared within that project as well. That'll be loaded into their IDE, right? So I like to think of custom commands as pretty similar to those agents that we gave you out of the box. You have the ability to take away out of the heavy lifting from prompt engineering for tasks and questions that you yourselves often find yourselves asking the AI chat, right? So you might have something that you're often asking for. Are there any common vulnerabilities, or do I have any dependency risks, or is there any security improvements I can make to this code? All things that you can have custom commands for and then share them. Same goes for if you have your team member a couple cubes down asking you what's that command that you have for creating new documentation based on the template that our organization likes to follow. You don't have to send it via Slack anymore and help them put it in or help them put it in. You can just share it with your project, which is really important, I think, for standardizing excellence in workflows across your entire organization. Consistency and efficiency are, I think, paramount for enterprise development teams. And that new custom commands feature, which is available exclusively for enterprise users, takes that team-wide collaboration to the next level. So what does that look like, right? There's two ways to share custom commands. You can share pre-created ones, right? So I want everyone in my team to have access to Steve Ballmer mode. So, their Tabnine chat will respond like Steve Ballmer at the .NET Conf. What will happen is when I share that, that's going to populate a new file here. If it's not already created, it'll create a new one for you. If it is, it'll add your custom commands to the shared file, right? So you can see now that Steve Ballmer mode is now added in. So there's the ability to add pre-made ones here, as well as when you're creating new ones, you have the ability to share those with your team as well. Now, one limitation right now is the ability to do at mentions or share at mentions within custom commands. But that's something that we're working on, and we'll get into that here in a second when it comes to making more complex sort of functionality in custom commands, how you can marry all three of these together. So previously, we talk about sort of the sky is the limit when it comes to custom commands and chat behaviors. And just to give everyone sort of an example of the cooler things you can do with them. I can have, for example, a custom command here that is, creating docs from a template. So reference this markdown file for proper documentation guidance, right? How I'm supposed to be writing documentation for my project. And then I can have number 2 is to create docs for the selected code based on the format of this markdown file. And then what I can also do is then go into custom behaviors, and I can say, hey, Tabnine, do things sequentially rather than doing them all at the same time. So what it's going to do then is go through my custom command when I activate it, and it will analyze the list first. It'll then create documentation for it based on that markdown file that's read. So you can sort of stagger and make these multi-step custom commands that are really, really powerful. Maybe you want to create new tests based off of old tests that you've created. Following that same sort of functionality, there's a certain way or method that your organization has to test things. Let's say hardware, for example. If you're making computer chips, there might be a handful, hundreds of ways, maybe thousands of ways that you have to test it, because there's millions of different variations of how that hardware chip can be deployed or used. So having that predetermined file that you can reference and then create test cases from that, being able to do it sequentially and use the marrying of the custom behaviors and the custom commands is incredibly, incredibly powerful. So let's jump over here actually to code review. So we're gonna jump in here. This is our we'll start with the rules interface, right? So the rules interface is where you can see predefined rules by Tabnine. Excuse me, just gonna take a drink. You can see predefined rules by Tabnine, as well as all of the rules that align with your unique standards. This is where they're going to be stored. So Tabnine Enterprise currently comes with a set of rules that we have gathered, evaluated, and implemented based on software development best practices from leading voices in our space. And you can see here within the rules interface, you can visualize, fine-tune the rule set, allowing good or determining good and bad examples of each rule, determine which rule is are public, on by default, enabled if it's user-wide or organization-wide, so on and so forth. Now, we talked a little bit about earlier in the session what it takes to upload these rules. How do you populate this? Well, of course, we have the ones that come standard out of the box with Tabnine. But there's also a couple other ways you can do it. You can give us access to what we would like to refer to as like a golden repository, where you see your most let's say your most mature code, right? But it's where your best practices are being enforced. It's where you have all of your guidelines and standards being enforced and enforced well. It's sort of your star child repository. You can give us access to that, and we will analyze and review and then create a rule set based off of that. Or you can just send us simple everyday language in an Excel file or a sheet. It can be rules as similar or as simple as check for proper handling of the use of the exception handler. We'll fill in the rest. Tabnine will ingest and fill in the rest, right? So we'll add good examples, bad examples, and so on and so forth. Severity level, which library or language it's applying to, and so on and so forth. All of which, though, This is not set in stone, right? This is a living, breathing interface. Rules change, company guidelines or standards or best practices change. These can all be configured at any time post adding them in. So what does it look like on the engineer side or the engineering manager side when they're reviewing a PR, right? So we'll do something like this. So you're an engineering manager, your engineers just submitted a PR. This is what the code review agent would look like on the opposite side, right? So it's taking the code when a developer makes a PR, Tabnine is going to review the code in the MR or PR against your rules, flag any deviations, and then offer suggestions to fix that code, right? So you can see here, this is the code in question, the suggested change, the rule that it's breaking, and for each change or each issue, it's doing just that, right? Providing the code, providing the rule that's being violated, and then providing the suggested change. And then at the bottom, it's also going to show you a summary table, right? So you'll be able to see how many critical errors in general, warnings, and then possible suggestions. A quick, easy way for a high-level summary of what went on in this PR. So it's worth mentioning we are working on transitioning, I believe, the rules interface. It will be in the admin panel of Tabnine. So it's going to be slowly more ingrained into the into your regular flow that you're used to. You will not always see this rules interface engine here. So let's move on to provenance and attribution. So let's go back over here. Okay, so sort of as Shantanu alluded to earlier, as many of you know, modern AI models like Claude, GPT-4, very, very powerful for code generation, but sometimes they introduce a challenge, right? How do you know if the generated code might have a licensing restrictions? And they're trained on such vast amounts of data, of internet data, including code with various license from permissive MIT to restrictive GPL. How do you know what you're dealing with, right? So we're going to jump to see if, say, how can I implement Plaid's API? We'll do, we'll do zero auth. Plaid's API within this dashboard. So when we do get the code suggestion, there'll be what I believe should be a new indicator here, because this is referencing, I would believe, publicly available code. So let me see here. We're going to go to another example I already have loaded up. So we're in the YouTube app, right? We have the open source YouTube project open. And I'm looking for, core snippets that extract and download videos from YouTube. And I'll see here that, okay, playlist handling, for example, video information extraction. Not just is it giving me the suggestion anymore, right? But we notice a new indicator here. And what'll happen is Tabnine automatically will check the generated code against all publicly visible code on GitHub. And it shows that if there are any matches with existing repositories, the source repository where matches were found, and the license type associated with that code, which, again, as Shantanu said earlier, which makes this particularly powerful, is that it checks for both exact matches and functional similarities. It identifies cases where variable names might just be changed, and it maintains a log for administrators to track matches across the entire organization, right? So there is still that oversight and ability to have that that insight across the entire org, which means that your team can make much more informed decisions about code adoption, right? So video information extraction, I'm in here. Okay, it's unlicensed and then MIT licensed, more unlicensed MIT license. But there's going to be a change or a chance that you might have something like an Apache 2.0 or different GPL licenses, right? So particularly powerful when, in the days like in the modern day we're in today, uh, open source code and people using open source projects is believe in like the 80s or 90s percents of enterprises that use open source code. So uh, it's prominent. It's there. People are using packages like this. It's really, really, really important to know that what kind of licenses you're bringing into your organization, because ultimately, you bring in the wrong license type, you push a product with that kind of code, and it can be detrimental to an organization. I'm sure, no one wants to have to pull a product off the shelf, right, or run into some sort of legal issues when you're already in, you already have a product live in production. So provenance and attribution can save you a huge headache down the road and save you a lot of liability when it comes to developing and pushing out good software. And I believe that is it. We've covered custom chat behaviors. We've covered chat response length. We've covered sharing custom commands and sort of what those commands might look like. We've talked about provenance and attribution and code review. Happy to answer any questions. Apologies, my StreamYard comment section has been off, so I haven't been able to see. It's been on a different screen. So I know I talk fast, and I haven't been asked to slow down. So we'll stop for a second here. Let's see here. It seems like, Shantanu, you've answered a lot of these in the chat here. So we'll stay on for a few minutes longer. I know we had provisioned only about 60 minutes, so we'll give it a few more here if anyone has any other questions or anything that they want to see. Disable features for a slow rollout, like only enable customer commands. That is a good question, Miriam. I know that you do have the ability to disable some features. Some features are also just standard with the version that we're in, but that's something that I can specifically a smaller feature, like the shared custom commands or like the chat response length. I'd have to double check on it if those are able to be turned off, because they are right now across every IDE, across every tier, with exception of the shared custom commands. That's not something that is only available to enterprise customers. Let's see here. See here. How can we use Tabnine with full application-wide context active and use the best model Claude while ensuring our code?
Yeah. No, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just going to say, Robert, it might sound like you have a use case for Tabnine Enterprise as opposed to Tabnine Dev.
Exactly.
When it comes to ensuring code privacy and security while being able to use third-party models. I think if in general, if intellectual property security is very, very important to you, I think it's definitely worth having a conversation about getting you guys onto a trial of Tabnine Enterprise. I think you would find a lot of value there when it comes to that full application security and privacy, because there is exponentially more features for folks at that tier.
Exactly. And the other thing about the dev plan is that it's limited to one seat. So it's good for personal use or if you're an individual developer, but not a good fit if you want to like use Tab9 across your team or across your company. So I'll also put in the link to the, I mean, if you go to like tab9.com/pricing, that's where you can like find information about the various pricing plans that we offer and the capabilities in each of those plans. But in your use case, Rob, I feel Tab9 Enterprise, like that's going to be like the best option.
So let me tackle Kevin's question here. So Tab9 differentiate from tools with huge deployments like Copilot or other emerging AI tools like Augment. Okay, so I'll take this one. Let me start with Copilot. Differences there. I'll take a sip because there's a handful. So deployment and privacy. Let's start at the top. Tab9, multiple deployment options, SaaS, VPC, on-prem, air-gapped. Copilot, SaaS only, tied to the GitHub ecosystem. Tab9 offers zero data retention. Copilot requires sharing some data with GitHub. Ecosystem integration. Tab9 works with all major IDEs, GitHub, your Git repositories, and development tools. Copilot, primarily optimized for GitHub, Microsoft stack. Model control, Tab9, realistically, you can choose almost any LLM, including private endpoints or local deployment. Copilot, I believe, is fixed to Microsoft OpenAI models. Enterprise features, I'd say Tab9 really shines on deep customization to team standards, advanced admin controls, the contextualization. So let me take a step back. Performance, right? It's table stakes that anyone can generate code now, right? GitHub, Cursor, Codium, everyone can generate code. That's nothing new. Generating code that makes it into production, that's a whole different story. Code review, whole different story. So you talk about how you get performance, right? That comes with context. The most contextually aware AI code assistant, without a doubt, is Tab9. More context, higher performance, more things into code or into actually production code, right? Because some of these, when they lack context, right, you have, let's say, GitHub Copilot, it lacks context features or the ability to gain proper context. You end up submitting this to your engineering manager in a PR, and then he turns around and says, well, none of this stuff's right. You have to go back and do all of this rework. It's not following our guidelines. We don't do things this way or that way. And then you're back at square one again, right? So it's that idea of that we're starting from the ground up. You're producing good code that's contextually aware because your IDE. Tab9 has all of these different points of context, from global RAG to connecting to your local workspace. As Shantanu said earlier, your all of the personalization pieces, right? Having it in German, having it do the custom commands that you want to do. It's all feeding into this idea that it's a very personalized, contextually aware platform. So, and then in general, yeah. So enterprise features, I think, yeah, Tab9 very deep into customization standards, and then security and compliance. I think research shows that Copilot has around a 30% weakness in rate and generated code. And you have areas like, Tab9 that offers proprietary model trained on only permissively licensed code. Things like that, if you have security as a must have, right? You have a legal team that has really, really tight restrictions on having your development organization be able to use AI. That's something that only we have. So I really think that Tabnine focuses on that enterprise grade personalization, control, context, where Copilot, not necessarily a bad tool, but provides more standardized developer tool within the GitHub ecosystem. But as we know, the space is ever changing and changing really fast, right? You have new models that pop up, you have new technologies that emerge. So it's really important to stay or be with a company or choose a company that's staying at the forefront of that innovation, allowing you to not be locked into one model or one ecosystem, right? So do with that as you wish. When it comes to smaller ones, right, like competitors like Cursor or Codium, right? I think it's a very similar story where, you know, you have some of these folks that create their own IDEs, which is great for a small shop or someone who's trying to dip their feet into software engineering or development. But imagine telling, if you're in a massive organization, imagine telling some of your developers that, hey, we're all going to switch off of VS Code and we're going to go somewhere else. You're going to adopt a new IDE. It's probably not going to happen. And if it is, you're going to have a ton of really pissed off developers. So you talk about, so I all that said, I think that they really focus, some of these other emerging ones are really focusing on the smaller startups, the smaller shops, where Tabnine has that personalization and context awareness to be really valuable to the large enterprise organizations, right? So Tabnine, I think a big difference between Cursor and Codium, for example, in Tabnine is, you know, Tabnine's really personalized each unique team's code base patterns and standards, right? We can connect entire code bases, requirements, documentation, workflow tools, and provide really context-aware suggestions, where a lot of these folks offer maybe more textbook solutions without that deep organizational context. Again, you talk about another difference with those tools is flexibility and privacy. So big thing with Tabnine, SaaS, VPC, on-prem, air-gapped. Say it again, we offer all of those deployment models where you're not just isolated on SaaS. We have a zero data retention policy, which is also something that you're not finding out in the market with other competitors. So I mean, I think I could, sure, I want to beat a dead horse here, right? There's, you know, IP protection and compliance, another thing that you don't see with some of those smaller vendors or different vendors. But really, I'd say that Tabnine's geared to the enterprise. A lot of these other folks are starting to talk or tackle the smaller shops, and you see that with things like new IDEs. But Tabnine with the code validation against company standards, integration with the widest variety of development tools and workflows, advanced admin controls for user policy and management, and those enterprise grade security features. That's something that we find truly, really, really, really valuable to the large organization. That's where Tabnine really shines, is with those enterprise organizations. So sorry, that was a really long answer to your question, Kevin, but I hope that provides some clarity for you. Miriam, to answer your question, sorry, there are ones that can be turned on and off. Something like custom chat behaviors, sharing custom commands, that might be more of a specific to a team question. So let me take a pending on that, and I can get back to you. Let's see here. Does Tabnine integrate with reasoning models like DeepSeek or GPT-01? We are exploring DeepSeek, evaluating it. Not quite sure yet what we're going to do on that front. But you can connect Tabnine to private endpoints. If you had a your own LLM that your organization was using, we have the ability to connect those into Tabnine. So while we might not offer it out of the box, something we can work with your team to connect. Rob, great, thank you. We'll have a discussion with our team about using Enterprise. Awesome, good to hear. Piggybacking off of, let's see here. Corey, piggybacking off of Rob's question, if our company were to use Tabnine Enterprise and self-host the server, can our company run third-party models like Claude or GPT on our own servers?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, if you're doing a private deployment of Tabnine, you can connect Tabnine to your private LLM instances. So you can, like, most enterprises that we work with, like, often have an instance of a powerful LLM that they have provisioned, and you have the option of connecting Tabnine to that.
So let me hide this guy. We got some new comments. Thanks. Thank you very much. Of course, Miriam. And of course. Okay. Any further questions? We'll stay on for a few more here. Really appreciate everyone's questions so far in chat. A lot of really, really good ones here. So I'm happy we're able to sit here and talk about them. And again, this is not the only opportunity that you'll have to ask these questions. As I said earlier in the session, was here yesterday. We'll be back next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that, the Wednesday after that for Tabnine office hours. So if there's something that you have or you want to see or you can't think of it right now, but you think of it the second the call is over, don't worry. We'll be back next week and you can ask more questions there and then. Well, all right. Let's let me get this thing out of here. See our beautiful faces again. Oh, perfect. We're a small organization with 2 developers using English. What would our adoption timeline look like? So let me see here. How long? Yeah, okay. So your original question, how long does it really take for a team to adopt Tabnine? That is, I think it's a really tough question, right? It's completely situational, in my opinion. 2 developers, small organization using English. I don't think that adoption would really take a long time. It's a pretty Tabnine, in my opinion, is the most intuitive. I'm not just saying this because I work here. It's the most intuitive tool I found out of the bunch of AI code assistants. It doesn't really hide features from you or hide functionality. The documentation is very well written, and in general, like the UX and UI is super easy to understand and navigate. 2 developers in a week. I mean, I think it's all dependent on bandwidth. Can I think it could be done in a week or 2? Absolutely. I don't think that's a stretch at all. But something that you'd have to talk with your team, and then we could work with you to get you guys enabled. Awesome. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, we'll give it 15 more seconds, and then we're going to be out of here. But again, really appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for spending an hour and 10 minutes with us on this Thursday morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're calling from. So, yeah, it's always a pleasure getting a chance to jump on and chat with everyone. So thanks again for coming today.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.